Good evening, everyone. Today's Monday, September 13, 2010. It's a Committee of the Whole meeting. If you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. And to make this meeting official, if I could have Clerk Spencer call the roll, please.
Gutenkopf. Gutenkopf. Pezza.
Here.
Shea.
Here.
Leader. But he's absent. Rose.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Nybo.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
13 present, 1 absent.
13 present, 1 absent. We have an official quorum. I will go on to item number 2, which is the, we have a kind of a laundry list and a committee of the whole from our city manager, Borchert. I wondered if you can give us a status, please, Mr. Borchert.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, I did provide a number of items on the agenda, but it's my intention to touch on those matters, to provide a status report for the City Council that has, as you know, in the audience, been significantly tuned towards flood control efforts and has asked that it be moved forward on an expedited basis and that the council be kept apprised on a every week basis. It would be my intention, embedded in formal city council meetings, which are first and third Mondays of each month, under reports from elected and appointed officials, until the issue is at a point where it's resolved. I would anticipate after the comprehensive plan is contracted for and that's underway, I would be reporting to you all embedded within the city council meetings in that formal fashion, and I would anticipate there would be from time to time committee reports that would be on other areas of the regular city council meeting agenda. But since the June and July events, we thought it'd be appropriate to, and have listed, from my perspective at least, a bit of a summary of, and a listing of the different aspects that have been put into play. And quickly, item 2, the Police Department, Fire, ESDA, and Public Works has completed all of the work that they need to do, submitted it to FEMA relative to filing for hopefully public financial support from FEMA if the President were so to declare. The President has declared FEMA authorized disaster dollars to flow to DuPage County for private side property damages as documented and per the FEMA guidelines, but not yet for public. We're prepared on the City of Elmhurst side, as was done after the '87 event, to make that application. Since June, actually, and then certainly since July, Public Works has made, on a regular basis, every week, a number of infrastructure checks: sewer system, sanitary system, storm system, inlets, manholes, things that have been brought to the particular attention of the city, and all of those have checked out in a acceptable fashion. There's been no issues that are at all extraordinary on any of those infrastructure checks. All of that will be, again, codified, documented, and forwarded on to the Burke team as they do their interim work, and then eventually to whoever is selected to do the overall comprehensive plan work. On the engineering side, a lot of data collection continues to go forward with. They meet with residents on a pretty regular basis. Sometimes it's Public Works staff folk that aren't engineers. Other times there's engineers. Sometimes it's the manager's office as well, meeting with folks. We're now upwards of 400 contacts have been made. Information's being provided as we're hopefully providing assistance to the community as they make private side decisions going forward. On the overhead sewer program, several years ago, again, this program was funded and matched the demand at about $15,000. Last year, there was a higher demand, and the council adjusted that to provide funding for about 10 overhead sewers, and City Council action last week authorized an additional amount of dollars that we anticipate will come close to meeting the current demand list for overhead sewers, I'm sorry. We're working with those folks. They understand the program. We're simplifying the application process and then the review process. There must be a sewer inspection made of all the work done by the contract plumbing inspector, assuring the city that everything's done according to the standards and rules. And the two things are that everything is properly done on the sanitary side, and then also that the stormwater side is separated from the sanitary lateral in a private sump pump discharge properly installed. On the Burke contract, the city staff met with the Burke team. Dr. Burke was in Elmhurst himself. He's taken on this interim assignment in a major way, assigning a lot of the work to himself. He had two other very qualified engineers with him. We met for most of an afternoon, reviewed all the data the city has, provided a handoff of that. They will further collect data. They're prepared to do simulations of capacity on the storm and sanitary side, as well as provide their overarching analysis. They're working as a priority on the documents that will be needed for the city staff to conduct the workshops. It would be my understanding that those workshops would best be done probably on a committee evening at City Hall, so the council is invited, perhaps make it a committee of the whole, provide about an hour format, allowing for 45 minute lecture and then a 15-minute response of questions and answers. That would allow the entire community to tune in as they wish, or to catch up afterwards if they missed it by going to the city website to review those workshops. That'd be, as I understand it, again, a foundation for whatever the comprehensive plan consultant reports back out to the community on. Burke is working on his preliminary evaluation of alternatives. If you recall, their proposal included some specific work in the southwest area of the community, the Sailor and Jackson lift station, first suggested by city staff. Burke will evaluate the notions of some possible actions there. But in addition, and specifically, I think in a very important fashion, they are beginning to do preliminary evaluation of all of the rainwater ponding areas in city streets that posed any problems with that ponding getting into private property structures. There's a listing of those locations in the memorandum directed to the council's attention September 2nd. So this work isn't limited to those, but certainly includes all of those locations. Dr. Burke indicated that he would honor the council's provisions relative to the contract amount for meetings and workshops, etc. He will have a Burke representative at the city information meetings to answer questions that are directed at the Burke team as opposed to the city team at no charge to the city. Believes it's very important that Burke answer those questions if they're questions directed at the Burke findings. On the priority item is the request for qualifications for the flood comprehensive plan update. That scope of work is to be done by Burke. That's his first priority effort. It's in a contradictory fashion, it's the smallest area of the Burke contract, but it's the highest priority relative to timing. Dr. Burke indicated he would have his scope of work back to the city staff within a week to 10 days after the contract signed. We anticipate that that'll be such that the city will have that scope of work to roll into what the city staff has prepared, which will be the rest of the documents to send out to the pre-qualified consulting engineering firms judged to be good candidates to be interested in and be qualified to respond to the Elmhurst request for work. The timing of that, again, would be send to the firms later in September, allow for about a month for those firms to respond. Those responses would come back to the City of Elmhurst then by late October. Those qualification statements would be forwarded to the review committee that would begin their work towards reducing the total respondents to 3, to interview 3, then work with 1, negotiate a contract with the 1, and present that negotiated contract to the whole City Council for the required policy decision of approval of that consultant. Lastly, items that have been put into play, where are they at? My scorecard has it as follows, that the sump pump inspection program is at the Public Works and Buildings Committee. That's actually on the agenda for the committee this evening. We anticipate that all of these at committee items would find their way back with a report of some type back for the full City Council. Item B, the request for a comprehensive city storm sanitary capital improvement plan. I'm interpreting that is actually what we have as a city asked Burke to provide a scope of work for, which will eventually be turned over to the successful consultant to prepare that comprehensive plan. So I think that is that's an action plan where the policy has been finished, and now we're carrying that out. And that's what I'd like. If I've misinterpreted anything here, let me know. Emergency usage of TIF funds, that is at the Finance Committee. We're waiting for that Finance Committee to write a report back to the full City Council. We have done, from a staff perspective, some review of the state standards on use of TIF funds, and you can use TIF funds for flood control items if it's in the TIF district and part of the redevelopment plan and project of the redevelopment of the TIF. Absent that, it's not appropriate. We will report to the Finance Committee that we really do not believe the General Assembly is going to allow any special legislation to allow that to change. From that perspective, believe that we should continue to use Elmhurst TIF dollars for what they were directed for. Impact fee policy, that is at the Finance Committee. Some material has been gathered. Again, the Finance Committee will get that on their agenda through assistance with the city staff liaison on an expedited basis. A temporary building moratorium matter, that is at the DPZ, as is flood control enhancement issues, which DPZ will be scheduling and then reporting back to the full City Council. Item G, the alternative residential stormwater management techniques. We have requested, at least for the interim, that Dr. Burke and his group look at this and build it into some of their interim work and prepare that then for work for the overall comprehensive planning consultant. I think this item was actually forwarded to the, I'm not sure, did that go to the Public Works Committee? We think it's actually, though, going to be part of the comprehensive plan that the consultant will complete. And lastly, the private property stormwater protection program. I inadvertently allowed that to be directed to the Finance Committee. That should be corrected, in my opinion, and go to the Public Works and Buildings Committee that would handle that. Everything's got a finance flavor to it relative if there's money's going to be spent, but that isn't what allows items to be forwarded to the Finance Committee. It's what's the underlying aspect or issue or responsibility, and private property stormwater protection would be more of a public works and buildings issue, code issue, infrastructure management issue, so that should be, with your permission and the clerk's permission, changed in our records to go to the Public Works and Buildings Committee. That's all I wanted to provide a quick status report for you all on and allow you an opportunity to correct my interpretations if that's appropriate. If not, we'll take your questions, and we're right on schedule.
Thank you, City Manager Portrait, and we appreciate the update.
And at this time, are there any questions for staff? Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my question is, this was a good high-level overview, but I'm anxious to start chomping at the bit and getting some of these details. One of the things that have been constantly on my mind, and others as well, is when these workshops are going to begin. So I guess my first question is, I know you stated that you'll be working with Burke, or Burke will be working with city staff on the workshops, but what is the timeline of that first presentation to happen?
I would hope that we could, again, Dr. Burke and his group have just, I don't think the contracts have actually been signed and executed, but they've certainly been authorized to begin work. I would hope that we could have at the first committee meeting night in October, the first one of these presentations. There was also kind of on a parallel track, as I heard discussions and heard community and group meetings and individual discussions, that there was a desire that this task force representing the community be identified and kind of in a parallel fashion provide thoughts and directions and thoughts. That would allow, as I understand Mayor DeCiani's plan, to identify the task force, the mayor's task force, prior to the first education meeting, and then anybody that would be on the task force certainly a little perhaps more motivated to come to the education meeting or tune in and follow along with the council and the rest of the community. So that'd be my thought, that we've got to do all of the rest of the work that is coming at the community. We need policy from the council on a regular basis. I think we could do a workshop at the committee of the whole nights before committee night. So my thought would be we'll try hard to get the first one going first committee night in October.
Thank you. I think in regards to that, my concern is that definitely get that communicated as soon as possible. In regards to whomever ends up on the finance task force, you know, these are committee of the whole meetings. They'll be taped. Everybody will be able to review them 10 times over. So I'm not that concerned with getting this out to the general public, but really just educating the general public as soon as possible. My second question is in regards to the request for qualifications. I know in the estimate it was approximately, I think it was 2 staff hours for Burke, 2 or 3 staff hours to complete this work. And it is a first priority, so I'm wondering why we would need to wait. I know 10 days doesn't sound like much, but with the demand and how long it took us to get to this point, why we couldn't squeeze those 2 to 3 hours out within the next 3 to 4 days and get this rolling a week ahead of time compared to 2 weeks.
We articulated the ASAP, and Dr. Burke indicated he would try to beat a week to 10 days. So I think he's given himself room to be successful, even if it doesn't work out as quickly as he thinks. But we will get it as quickly as we can. On the city side, we've got most of the rest of the package ready to then be mailed to the firms that have been pre-qualified or been judged pre-qualified by city staff. And again, if any of the council has folks, consulting firms you'd like us to look at compared to the ones that we've already looked at, we'd like to do that.
Is there a reason why we're not broadcasting this out and the city's selecting familiar firms in regards to the RFQ? Is it just for quick turnaround, or?
Well,
City Manager portion. Yeah.
There's a lot of very qualified firms. It'll be certainly of record those that the city sends out, but the city, we've identified, besides Burke as qualified, Camp Dresser McGee, a company called CH2M Hill, a company called ERA. That actually is the firm that has done the work for the city on the certification of the Elmhurst berm. Baxter and Woodman, that has done a lot of sewer and water work in the region for for many, many, many years and done a lot of work for Elmhurst, and then the Harza firm that has done a lot of work for Elmhurst over the years. So those are the 6 firms that the city has identified as pre-qualified and worthy of being invited to respond further.
Thank you.
Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah, you mentioned I want to go back to the overhead sewer for a minute. You said that last year we had 10 applications. I've heard the number 55 a number of times this time, but I didn't hear a number today. Do we have a current list of how many people have actually applied for the overhead sewer program?
City Manager Borchard.
It's about 90 have inquired. They all haven't indicated that they're desiring to proceed, but we've had 90 discussions.
Okay, just another general question. I know you've been doing a lot of work, and that the staff's been doing a lot of work on things such as status reports and getting things ready for FEMA and filing all the paperwork with them, working a little bit with Burke's organization. I'm sure you've done some debriefing after this has occurred. Is there anything that initially, besides the overhead sewer plan, that you guys have highlighted that you've seen that you've already made changes with internally within the staff that would be done differently if that flood were to occur tomorrow?
City Manager Borchard.
My understanding of Mr. Hughes is changed a bit of the prioritization of deployment of personnel, and even though there's a SCADA system, an electronic control system at the Sailor Jackson Station, at least for a number of storms going forward, I understand Mr. Hughes will have a Public Works lift station operator trained in the facilities of that, facility management of that operation, deployed to the site if there's an extraordinary rainfall anticipated.
Anybody else? All right. And just so everybody knows, too, the task force, if anybody has any last-minute names they would like to get to me, get them right to Clerk Vanderwall, if Clerk Spencer, but Deputy Clerk Aaron Vanderwall is kind of keeping tabs of those. So we are going to hopefully identify the task force for our next meeting. Alderman Pezza.
Yes, how will people be notified that they have been chosen?
They'll get a phone call from the clerk's
phone
office.
call?
Absolutely. So, okay. All right. Anything else? All right. And as Mr. Borchard mentioned, every council meeting, instead of doing a committee of the whole, we will have under basically the section of reports from elected officials. We will have an other line for stormwater, so that we don't have kind of what happened at the last meeting where we basically open a meeting and close it right away. So we will address stormwater at every single council meeting we have as a separate line item, and then as needed, committee of the wholes on committee nights, especially if we're doing the workshops, et cetera. And these status reports are nice, and we thank you, Mr. Borchard. At this time, it asks for a motion to adjourn so we can go into committees. Alderman Healy, second by Alderman Wagner. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? We're adjourned.